coming at you on the eve of the first summer weekend of the year. On this week's 5 Minutes at Frat House with Frat House Mike and Sidekick. And you know, it's kind of hard to believe that we're Memorial Day. We're at Memorial Day. It seems like we were just warming up for Super Bowl. I mean, really. I mean, wasn't that just a couple of weeks ago? And here we are already at Memorial Day. And no, we're not warming up for the Super Bowl. Instead, we're now, believe it or not, over a quarter of the way through the baseball season.
And the beginning of grilling season.
True enough on that, right here from the Frat House. And the NBA is in their conference finals. Who'd have thunk this? But as we usually do, let's kick it off this evening with some motorsports. And specifically some drag racing as NHRA moved out to the Kansas Nationals last weekend. Excuse me, and mercifully got all their racing in before that bad weather moved across that region. When the dust settled on Sunday, holy smokes, Johnny Gray had won the funny car division for the second week in a row. This week beating John Force Racing's Robert Height in the finals on Sunday. Gray ran his car at 314.9 miles per hour and ran the track at just over 4 seconds. After Height had spun his wheels off the line. Gray amazingly secured his 3rd win of the season, but when you put that all into perspective, it's only his 6th ever in funny car in his entire career.
Yep.
Amazingly.
And with those 3 wins, he's only 10 points over Cruz Pedregon.
Absolutely right. And we're going to be looking at that. You got it. We're going to be looking at the leaderboard in a moment. You're going to see how that affected, particularly in the funny car, on the funny car teams. And there's the leaderboard right there. All right. Over in the Top Fuel Dragster division, Tony Schumacher extended his lead at the top just a bit now. He's 34 points ahead of Sean Langdon. Antron Brown now drops back to 3rd. And as you just pointed out, with that 3rd win of the season, Johnny Gray takes over the leaderboard just 10 points ahead of Cruz Pedregon. I had mentioned last week, for the past couple of seasons, these were 2 divisions, Top Fuel and Funny Car, that we saw were running away with things usually at this time, but no, not this year. This year, it's Pro Stock that's running away with things. Mike Edwards holds on to the top spot, 76 points ahead of Jeg Coughlin.
But with Jag's win this weekend, though, he gained 50 points.
Yes, he did.
He was like
126.
Yeah, yep. He was way back there.
You're absolutely right. In fact, he gained 50 points is exactly the number because it was 126 last week.
So, you know, it's not completely a runaway in that division.
No.
But,
absolutely not. Now, our NHRA drivers, they get Memorial Day weekend off, and we'll be back at it again next weekend out in Englishtown, New Jersey. All right. Now, over in NASCAR, we had the Sprint Cup All-Star Race at Charlotte Motor Speedway last Saturday night. And as we mentioned last week, this is a 90-lap exhibition race. It does not count the standings. 90 laps, 5 segments, 420 laps, and a final 10-lap segment. And for the longest time, it certainly appeared that the big check was going to be cashed by one of the Bush brothers. But it was Jimmy Johnson winning a record 4th All-Star race. Now, other top 5 winners in that included Joey Logano, who came in 2nd. Kyle Busch ultimately did come in 3rd. Casey Kane came in 4th. And there's brother Busch, Kurt, coming in 5th.
Now, what's interesting about this All-Star race is Danica got in on fan vote.
Yes.
So, basically, the All-Star race, you have half the field you have during a normal race. You have 22 vehicles. Danica finished 20th out of 22, which really was last place when you consider Mark Martin crashed out and Brad Keselowski lost his transmission on the 3rd lap. So,
you just
great run there, Danica. Great job.
Following in her failure.
Not to mention her boyfriend almost wrecked her. And Tony Stewart had to run at the back of the pack to keep the 2 civil, apparently.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, come on now.
You know, it's interesting, though. You bring up a lot of controversy. You bring up a lot of... There was a lot of controversy surrounding the finish on this one. And to me, it's kind of amazing to hear all of the static that there has been about what essentially is an exhibition race, folks. It doesn't count. But there was a lot of controversy about it. Many fans, I was over on a number of fan forum pages, like the day after, and even now you can go out there and you can still find fans that are screaming about this particular race. Fans were expressing a need for a format change. So we've had calls for format changes.
Yep.
There were confusions over the final segment lineup. We saw that even coming from the broadcasters to what was actually happening on the racetrack. Some fans calling for the All-Star race to be eliminated altogether and to add another points race. Many are claiming that the race was boring and predictable. Some were saying that it was just nothing more than a warm-up for the Coca-Cola 600. What's your read on all of this? What's your read on what we saw on Saturday night, particularly in that, I think they make a good point with regard to the lineup in the final, that final 10-lap segment. That was a bit confusing. What's your read on some of this?
Well, on this week's episode of As the Wheel Turns, all the drama going on in NASCAR, I don't necessarily see what everybody's complaining about with the All-Star race. I understand, Jimmy Johnson wins.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been a problem I've had with NASCAR. And I don't think there's necessarily anything NASCAR can do about it. Jimmy Johnson's just dominant. And sometimes it makes for boring races or boring seasons when, old five-time,
right.
walks away, 5 years in a row, wins championship 5 years in a row. So, I can understand some fans saying it's boring with the format. Some things that they've done in the past that they didn't, it used to be at the end of each segment, you reversed the field. So the people in the back were in the front, and the people in the front were in the back.
Trying to create parity.
Well, just to switch things up.
Right.
Because, if you're constantly in the front, you go in, like, for instance, the Busch brothers.
Right.
Kurt won segment 3, I think, Kyle won segment 3. Kurt, I think, won 4.
Well, Kyle won 2 of them, didn't he? Kyle won 2.
Okay, Kyle won 2, yeah. And then what happened was they went in the pits for the final one, and, due to stuff that happened in the pits, Jimmy Johnson wound up out front, like Kurt Busch wound up, back, Clint Boyer wound up back.
Right.
And that kind of set the final stage. And then there's not a whole lot of passing going on. They were saying
there's something screwy around here.
The cars that had clean air
right.
were able to just take off.
Well, okay, but what about this whole? Was that a new rule? And I'll look out. I'm going to look out to my folks in the production crew as well. Was that a new rule where they went with the whole? We're going to average things out for the final segment. That was a new rule. That was very, very confusing, because by all appearances, it did not look as if Jimmy Johnson should have had the position that he did in that final lap. And I think that's where a lot of people, and you might be right, that perhaps maybe some of the fans who have been, I guess, complaining the most since the end of this particular exhibition race are those that really just are sick and sore and tired of Jimmy Johnson winning. And maybe, I was reading one article today where, it's the old conspiracy theory thing that, NASCAR switched things up at the last minute and, that allowed Jimmy Johnson to win the race.
I can't stand Jimmy Johnson. I think Jimmy Johnson's bad for the sport. But you'll see me every week in fantasy. He's on my roster. Why? Because he wins races.
Yeah.
And when we're in fantasy, it's about winning. And sometimes you have to throw your personal prejudice away because you're trying to win a
Right.
And I think that's kind of where where this is. When you take our NASCAR's exhibition and you compare it to any of the other exhibition games, it's still better than any of the other.
Thank you very much.
The people saying let's do away with it. I'm sorry, it's still a good race. It's still a race. You look at the NFL All-Star.
Yeah,
that's a freaking joke.
You make such a great point, and I got to tell you right now, that's exactly how I responded to the fan forum. One of the fan forum sites that I was responding to where a lot of them were calling for the elimination of the race. And I said, I put it right back at him and I said, I got to tell you right now, I think as far as an exhibition goes, this is fabulous entertainment. It is far better than a lot of the other exhibitions that are out there in any of the other major sports, particularly that horrible, horrible thing called a Pro Bowl.
Exactly. And
I mean, listen, Major League Baseball does okay with it. I think they do okay. But even that's getting a bit dull. The NBA is horrible. There's no defense. The NHL is horrible. There's no defense. And then the Pro Bowl, forget it. I mean, just take that thing and put it in the closet and lock it away forever.
I heard some calls for changing the venue.
I like that idea. I actually like that idea.
That might be a little bit interesting.
I like that idea.
I mean, I understand why it's at Charlotte because it gives the teams leading up to Memorial Day holiday, it allows teams to be in one place for 2 weeks and gives them a little bit of a reprieve from traveling all over.
Yeah, but that's only fanning the flame of those that are saying, well, it's nothing more than just a warm up for the Coca-Cola 600.
Well, right.
So,
but you got to kind of think about them. They're on the road, for
every week.
NASCAR's one of the longest
February to
seasons we
November.
have, are there things they can do better? Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the idea of changing the venue. I think that might be something they should maybe take a look at. I like that idea. But all right, well there you have it. It was an all-star race nonetheless, and frankly, from Sidekick myself, I think we're both in agreement. Hey, it might need a little tweaking, but that's about it. It's a good fun thing to watch.
Yeah, no, it's a great product.
Yeah, it is.
Especially when you throw it up against any of the other the all-star games. So
right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we just pointed out, teams are all staying in Charlotte from last week to this week, as they're racing again. As Sidekick just pointed out, we're racing there again this weekend. Except this time it counts, and it's the Coca-Cola 600 on Sunday. Coverage beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. And since the points are counting, that means Sidekick. Fantasy is up, and we're running again, and we need your suggestions.
All right, so as you were pointing out, Mike, it's back to point racing this weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. This week's race is the longest of the season, 600 miles.
Right.
So not only are we going to test the driver's endurance, we're going to test the endurance of the vehicles.
Right.
And so don't be surprised when they hit the 500-mile mark, when you start seeing some cars break and start having these, some catastrophic
Game
failures.
over, man. It's game over.
Okay.
Which can ruin your roster. Now, I'm going to take a little bit, we're going to roll the dice a little bit this week.
Okay.
As we were saying,
as
we were saying in the previous segment, Jimmy Johnson, this is the house that Jimmy Johnson built. This guy's been dominant at this track, and everybody is going to try to put Jimmy Johnson on their roster. Okay?
I have a feeling you're not going to.
So I'm going to go in a little bit different direction to try to, for all those people putting Johnson in there, if you're trying to catch up to people, let's stay away from Johnson this week and try to go in a different direction to try and gain points and make up on all those people that pick Jimmy Johnson. And hopefully it pans out. Hopefully he doesn't win. So here's where it gets really interesting. I'm actually going with the mostly Joe Gibbs roster this week.
Okay.
So we're gonna start off with Matt Kenseth. He's got 3 victories so far this year. This guy is hot.
Yep.
2 of them on mile-and-a-half track.
Yep.
Which is similar to what Charlotte Motor Speedway is. He's $28. Then we're going to go with Kyle Busch. 4th place at Vegas this year, won at Texas, and he finished 3rd here last year in the 600-mile race, $27.50. Denny Hamlin finished 2nd here twice last year and has a 5-race top 10 streak at Charlotte. He's $26.25. Then we're going to throw another hot streaker in here, David Reagan. 1 win this season and 3 top 10s on this track, $9.75. Then with the little bit we have left, we're just going to throw a little fluffer in there. We're going to put Landon Castle on our roster, $6.25. Rounds out the roster at $97.75.
Bold.
Yep.
Bold moves.
But sometimes you have to make bold moves.
I will be taking all of this into account on Sunday morning as I sit there making my final picks.
Oh, no!
But some side notes though. You can look at Jimmy Johnson. You know, I said, since they've changed the name from Lowe's back, to Charlotte Motor Speedway, he's kind of cooled off in his performances. But Jimmy Johnson's a good one to look at, and of course Kurt Busch. I'm trying to come up with a roster that fits within the 100 hours.
Right.
But there's several other names out there that you can throw in there and sub people out.
Kurt certainly has been running very, very well in the past number of weeks.
And
been a bit of a surprise.
Kurt's a good one if you want to kind of roll the dice.
Yeah.
Kurt's not a bad one to throw out there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, just some additional side notes.
All right, let's move it on. And as we approach the unofficial start of the summer season, it makes us all kind of think of America's pastime, and that means baseball. And so let's take a look at a quick look at the division leaders right now. Over in the American League, the New York Yankees continue to lead the AL East, a half game in front of the Boston Red Sox.
Yep.
In the Central this week, it's the Cleveland Indians, just a half game in front of the Detroit Tigers. And in the West, the Texas Rangers are 5.5 games in front of the Oakland A's.
Yeah, Seattle kind of just fell off the map there.
It's still early.
I know.
I keep saying that about her. It's still early. All right. In the National League, the Atlanta Braves have warmed up again, now going 7-3 in their last 10, and are 4.5 games now in front of the Washington Nationals, who I heard an interesting report today. The Nationals, actually on my way home here, the Nationals actually have worse numbers than the Philadelphia Phils in almost every single category.
And I was just going to say, the Phils are in third place, only 5.5 games out.
Yep.
So they seem to be
What it is.
They're hanging in there. They're going to be. They are what they are. They're going to be a 500 team, but this division just doesn't look like anybody really wants it. So we'll see how it goes as we move on. Your St. Louis Cardinals stay in front in the Central, a game and a half in front of the Cincinnati Reds, and in the West,
how about
a three-way tie?
Exactly. I was just going to say.
Arizona Diamondbacks, I've got them listed, but really it's the D-backs, it's the Rockies, and the Giants, all a three-way tie in the West.
And that whole division is within 5.5 games.
Exactly.
The Dodgers are in last place at 5.5 games.
Top to bottom. Right. Exactly.
So,
all right.
Interesting.
Yep.
It's time again for Frat House Mike's Screwball Story.
All righty, and there you have it. Yes, it is. Let's go take a look at some of it's funny, some of it's, well, we might get into a little conversation on some of it. For folks that have seen or followed Shane Victorino over his career, it's obvious that the Flying Hawaiian is kind of a bit quirky. Like if you've ever really followed him,
strange person.
He is, a little odd, yeah. And then sometimes perhaps maybe even, you might be thinking like, is this guy on something, Well, now we know that he does have an addiction. Victorino frequently shares issues with his addiction with Minnesota Twins pitcher Vance Worley, who he developed a relationship with while they both played for the Phils. Worley apparently suffers from the same addiction. But even Worley admits that Victorino has him beat as the Imelda Marcos of the Major League Baseball with his addiction to shoes. Worley reported that Victorino recently contacted him via social media, and in a newspaper article, Worley reported it this way: he's having a hard time getting a hold of this one pair that just came out the other day. Worley said, he's like, I know you got a guy. I'm like, I'm not saying I don't have a guy. What's the importance of this shoe versus any other? He's like, I gotta have these. My addiction's getting so bad. Apparently, it's also been reported that Victorino won't even venture a guess as to the extent of his collection. You've got a connection to
and
this.
I've got a connection to this. Actually, one of the many studios I train at, the head trainer at the studio is actually friends with the guy.
The guy that's
The guy that actually got Vance Worley into his shoe addiction.
Yeah.
And you know, and we were discussing this actually last week, which is so ironic that you bring it up this week. And I was told that the guy who's friends with the head trainer, he says Vance Worley gets shoes every couple days, every few days he's ordering a new pair, and the guy makes about $1,000 a month just off Worley ordering shoes.
And Worley's saying that Victorino's addiction is worse.
Exactly. So.
Oh man, can you imagine? Honestly,
There seems to be no sign of intelligent life
I
anywhere.
would say not. The AL West leading Texas Rangers did something the other day that just isn't done anymore. They had ace Yu Darvish, who currently leads the majors in strikeouts, pitch 8 complete innings. Now, that's not the unusual part. The unusual part is they let him throw 130 times in a 10-4 blowout of the Detroit Tigers. In fact, the Rangers actually had racked up that score by the 6th inning, but the Rangers skipper trotted Darvish out there for 2 more additional innings to the 8th. Many fans were questioning the wisdom of that decision in a game that seemed well under control. I don't know. I think I might as well. I throw it open to you just for conversation for a minute. What's your thinking on pitch counts? 130? That seems... You don't hear pitchers doing 130 anymore.
Right. I kind of read up on it a little bit, and part of what was said was, hey, we were trying to save our bullpen. That's why we kept them out. We kept them out there because they don't have they don't have that faith in their relievers.
Right. I don't know if they have been used a lot recently or what. Right.
And I can understand that. And apparently Hugh Darvish has pitched some high-pitched games.
He has when he was when he was overseas and what have you. Yes, he did.
So I don't know. I'm kind of in the it's a whole lot of.
But generally, what's your
much ado about nothing?
This kind of rule in the sand kind of thing that 100 pitches is about where you want to be going. You don't want to go too much over that. I mean, what's your?
Well, if you got a suspect bullpen,
sometimes you have to,
and you're trying to win games, and you don't think that you've got even though they had a huge lead,
right?
If you don't have that faith in your bullpen, you think you could wind up losing that game. I'm sorry.
What else are you gonna do?
You're gonna have. I'm gonna have my pitcher pitch 130 pitches. Sorry,
right.
I want the win. And hopefully we don't, burn them out.
Exactly.
So, we don't Strasburg him.
Well, let's go over and take a look at another pitcher, and that's Cincinnati Reds closer Aroldis Chapman. Arguably one of the best closers in the league this year. And in fact, throughout his career, he had never given up 2 home runs in 1 inning. That was until Sunday, when he blew a save against the Philadelphia Phils and lost 3-2 in the 9th inning. Chapman not only gave up 2 home runs, but they were back-to-back home runs. Here's the interesting part, and I'm not saying it's necessarily connected, but, well, a little bit of an interesting sidebar. It was reported the next day that prior to that game, Chapman had consumed 18 Cuban guava and cream cheese pastries. Phillies Spanish-speaking broadcaster Ricky Ricardo, not the one you're thinking of, different one, was quoted as saying, when I saw him on Sunday morning before the game, he was in the clubhouse. He had just eaten about 18 of them. He couldn't breathe. Oh, that's one way to win a game, huh? Tuesday evening, Los Angeles Angels phenom 21-year-old Mike Trout became the youngest major leaguer to hit for the cycle since Mel Ott did it in 1929. Of course, evidence is showing currently that he did hit a double, triple, and home run. What happened to the simplest of those, the single? Well, according to this picture right here, he was awarded the single, but it clearly shows he was out. Sidekick, what do you make of this one? I mean, replay? No replay? What do we do? How far does replay go? I mean, we're awarding a cycle, which doesn't happen. But maybe what? Once, twice a season, if you're lucky. And This kid, the youngest ever, now goes down in the record books. Do we replay this one? I mean, what do you do here?
Nah. Let him have it.
You let him have it.
That's the current rules of baseball. There's no replay.
Okay, does something like this, where it is so obvious, does this prompt us to say, okay, we got to have replay? Okay, I'll go from that angle. I'll go from that angle.
It definitely goes into the case, the argument for, hey, we need to institute this.
I mean, you would admit he is out.
Yeah.
And he should not have gotten the cycle.
Right.
Okay. All right.
But it's human error, and that's how baseball is.
You saw what you saw.
I understand that. You're absolutely right. And I don't want replay on every single play.
Oh yeah, 'cause, these games.
I made the case that the games are long enough as it is. So, I don't want to see that either. But we're talking about a record-breaking situation here. A little bit asterisk. That's what.
Yeah, but see, here's where putting.
I'm not against Mike Trout. Don't get me wrong.
Well, I mean, the Angels need some sort of bright spot.
True.
But here's sort of the problem with this. How do you make a judgment call on whether or not this should be reviewed?
Well, yeah. I'm not.
I mean, unless someone at the time says, "Hey, no, he wasn't," almost like a coach's challenge.
A manager coming out, right?
And saying, but if nobody saw, if nobody came to the refs and said, hey,
I just can't believe he's standing right there. He can see clearly.
Right, but if nobody challenges the ref and say, hey, no, he was
Right.
out, then the play would have stood anyway.
Yeah.
It's going to need some work.
Yeah.
I think, there should be at some point some sort of institution of it, but they're going to have to really work
we have it in
out.
place now. What, for home runs, or at least certain home runs, right?
Right.
All right. So we have it in place for that, and apparently there has been more and more and more talk and lather building up towards an expansion of that. Bud Selig has said that in fact they're going to be looking at it potentially for institution shortly. I'm certain it won't be this year, but well, I guess we'll see where it goes. I just got a little bit of a problem.
Next thing you know, it's going to be like NASCAR, where they're going to have scoring loops around the
exactly.
bases,
Well,
and you'll be able to.
Okay.
You wear a little transponder on your uniform, and
Umpires union isn't going to go for that. You know that. Referees union, they're never going to go for that. But because that would eliminate their jobs. All right. Sidekick, the NBA is now in third round of the playoffs. Give us the update on round ball as we're now into the conference finals.
Yes, we are.
You got short duty here tonight.
yes, luckily. All right. In the West, we have the San Antonio Spurs against the Cinderella Memphis Grizzlies, who apparently broke a heel and are down 2-0 to the Spurs, with
Yep.
Game 3 coming Saturday night at 9 p.m. and then Game 4 on Monday at 9 p.m.
Spurs are down 2-0. Right. Okay.
No, Spurs are up.
Spurs are out. I'm sorry. Okay.
The Grizzlies
I know
are
you
down.
were wrong here. Okay. Right.
Grizzlies are down.
Right.
And in the East, we've got the Miami Heat, yuck, and the Indiana Pacers. Miami's up 1-0 on Indiana on some last-second LeBron heroics.
Yes.
Yes.
Clutch. He came through in the
Mr.
clutch.
Clutch, yes.
Yeah.
Just remember, his phone still rings one time.
That took overtime, by the way, to do that.
Yep.
And, well, hey, why don't we go right to it? That leads me right to our Frat House Sports Facebook post of the week. Most viewed post was one I actually posted last night following that game, and that game didn't end until late, and it ended up being our number one post.
Yep.
In which I put the post up and I wrote to it, 2 thoughts on this evening's NBA Eastern Conference Final, Game 1 between the Indiana Pacers and Miami Heat. Number 1, wow, perhaps the Pacers will give them their toughest challenge. Heat won by only 1 point in overtime. And 2, How do the LeBron James haters, of which admittedly I might be one, respond to the fact he was clutch tonight in that must-win, or in making that win? So, you know, I guess it quieted everybody down for a little bit. There you have it. There's our post for our Frat House Sports Facebook page. Keep them coming. Get over there, give us a like, and keep those things coming. All right, finally, let's pick up the action in the second round of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs.
Oh, I can leave now, right?
Yes, you may.
I'm done, right?
You're dismissed.
I'm done, right?
Your holiday weekend has just begun. Second round of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. And we'll get you up to date with the series taking place over there. In the West, the number 1 Chicago Blackhawks are down 2 games to 1, surprisingly down 2 games to 1 over the number 7 Detroit Red Wings. While the series between the number 5 Los Angeles Kings and the number 6 San Jose Sharks, well, that's all tied up now at 2 games apiece. In the East, the number 1 Pittsburgh Penguins, 3 games to 1 up now currently over the number 7 Ottawa Senators. And the series between the number 4 Boston Bruins and number 6 New York Rangers is a bit surprising, with the Bruins now up 3-0, and that game will be actually, they're dropping the puck on that one in about 5 minutes, believe it or not, for Game 4. So we'll see how that goes. All right, there's our show for Memorial Day weekend 2013. Can you imagine it? We are here already. Summertime, baby. We'll have to do a show one time where we're actually out doing a little grilling right here at the Frat House. Before we leave, let's run around real quick. Please don't forget to check us out over on Fan Junkies Radio. Jonathan and I, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Blog Talk Radio at 12 noon Eastern Time. And, of course, Frat House Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, where we get the rebroadcast. I rebroadcast this very show. Our good buddies Jim and Carl over at CLW 83. And Jim's terrific show. You're going to be a guest on that one this week. The Touch 'em Up program over his Major League Baseball program. So Sidekick will be making his national debut on that program over at CLW 83. And last but not least,
Guaranteed there won't be any hockey talk in there.
No, there won't be. No,
I mean, come on, all right, but I'm going in
we're
there.
not doing that. All right, so make sure also you get over and help us out checking out our own website, huh? FratHouseSports.net. All right? All right, listen, wish you the very, very best holiday weekend as we embark on summer. It's always everybody's favorite. But before you do any of that, I need you to do one more thing for me, and that's you got to keep us real, you got to keep us live, and you got to keep us going. We'll see you next week.
The final segment is 10 laps, and we have the strongest cars of the night up front. Jimmy Johnson, with that pit stop, was battling his teammate, Casey Kane, and it's funny that we see Casey Kane and Kyle Busch together on the racetrack again a little later.
Yeah, a little bit later, but you know, here's the thing. Early on a set of tires, the bottom groove seems to be the better way. Casey is a high kind of guy where he gets up next to the wall. But in 10 laps, you can't make it work in 10 laps. And Jimmy Johnson goes back to the Jimmy Johnson groove here, which ends up always, it seems like, in victory lane.
No one was close to Jimmy Johnson as he comes around to win his 4th All-Star event that leads on the all-time list over the 3 wins of Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Gordon as Jimmy celebrates once again. He just absolutely has this race and this place figured out. Look at Jimmy Johnson ahead of Logano, Kyle Busch, Casey Kane, and Kurt Busch. And you know, Kyle, as we go back through this finishing order, it really doesn't matter. That